What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks, directed by Joe Dante. The Burbs tells the story of the characters of Ray, Art, and Mark as they team up to pretty much have their own investigation to their eccentrically weird neighbors known as the Kopekis. Their investigation draws them to the conclusion that their neighbors may or may not be ritualistic murderers, and the fun ensues from there. Alright, that's the overall story of The Burbs. Let's talk about it overall. I thought The Burbs is a very good movie. I don't think this is one of Tom Hanks' best movies by any stretch of the imagination. But for what it is, I found this movie to be quite enjoyable, and a lot of that has to go to the overall cast in this movie, which has actors like Carrie Fisher, Tom Hanks, Corey Feldman, and Bruce Dern, and Rick Danakuman. If I said his name wrong, I'm sorry. This movie boasts a very good and talented comedic cast. You also have the talents of Joe Dante, who is famous for doing movies like Gremlins and The Howling. So this movie has a lot of talent behind it. Not only that, the movie starts out with a very interesting story. Then, when it gets to the third act, I think it kind of falls apart a little bit for my personal taste, to be honest with you. But for what it is, I thought the movie was a lot of fun. Tom Hanks as the character of Ray Peterson. Tom Hanks is one of those actors who just looks like a suburbanite, and he plays the role of a suburbanite just way too well. I thought Tom Hanks was overall very, very good in this movie as the character of Ray Peterson, the skeptic, if you will, the man who does not believe his neighbors are crazy, yet his other two neighbors think that the neighbors are crazy, and you get that clash. Uh, I thought his friend, the character of Art, I thought he was decent in the role. I thought he was really funny in his role as well. He's like the eccentric kind of sort of best friend to the Ray character, and I thought Hanks and Dakuman had pretty decent on-screen chemistry with one another. Uh, on top of that, you have Bruce Dern as the character of Mark, and Dern, he's pretty much playing a Vietnam War veteran who was just pretty much just who was just crazy. And I actually like and I enjoyed Bruce Dern in this movie. I thought he was a lot of fun. The three of them together, I thought they make for a very fun trio, especially when they're doing their investigations and they're trying to piece together clues to try and hint at the fact that their neighbors may be up to no good. I thought all that was a lot of fun. The actors who played the neighbors, I thought all three of them did a good job at just bringing a creep value to themselves. I thought they were fine in the roles as well. Carrie Fisher, who plays Ray's wife, Carol. She was fine in the role. I thought her and Hanks had decent on-screen chemistry with one another. Corey Feldman, who plays a character called Ricky, he appears in the movie as well. I liked him. I think would have been more interesting if Ricky would actually join the trio for the investigations. I think that could have been a lot of fun. But Ricky just is more in the side, acting more or less as a cheerleader, and maybe the next and someone who's like who is just viewing the neighborhood as the most interesting street on the block. So it's like, that's okay for what it is, I guess. Yeah, there are certain actors in this movie who I thought were maybe a little bit underutilized for my taste, and I would have liked to have seen them get more expanded upon. But for what they are in this film, I enjoyed it. The overall story on paper is extraordinarily interesting and can lead to a lot of laughs, which to me it does. And it also takes a black comedy approach, which is just the icing on the cake. But I think my biggest gripe is that the ending of the movie confirms that the Kopekis, the family that is being investigated, they really are, up to no good and suspicious people. I think it would have been funnier. I think it would have been funny if the Kopekis were not depicted as murderers or hinted to be or not depicted as murderers in the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, I think it would have been more funny if it would have been like more misdirection as to who the Kopekis really, really are. Instead they just once you get to the third act, they pretty much assume the villainous role that everyone had rightfully guessed that they really were. I think that was kind of a drag. I think it would have been more interesting if they didn't go down that route, and it would have been a little bit more funnier if they were not vicious murderers and that everything was just misdirection and that everyone just took all these urbanites took everything at face value, and it was really not what they thought it was. I thought that would be much more funnier, as opposed to the Kopecki's being revealed to be murderers, which is what they are. The only reason why the Kopecki's are in their house that they're in at the start of the film is because they murdered the previous tenant. Now, I think the movie could have been a little bit more interesting if it would did the opposite approach. Is what I'm trying to say. But for the context of the film, it's okay. It's works. Now, in terms of the movie's comedy, this movie, Joe Dante, that's where Joe Dante to me is on point. Joe Dante is very good at doing that dark black comedy, and this movie's got tons of it. Not only that, you have appearances from Joe Dante alumni like Dick Miller and Robert Picardo as two garbage men, so that's always a plus. But the comedy in this movie, I thought the comedy in this movie was actually pretty good. And I thought some of the physical comedy in this movie was also pretty funny as well. So in terms of like the execution of the comedy, I thought Joe Dante did a very good job. The cast also did a great job. The only thing that I wasn't so crazy about was the overall story, particularly when you get to the end. But the rest of the movie, I found it to be quite enjoyable. So yeah, minus some actors who I feel are underutilized, and the third act, which I wasn't too crazy about, didn't really ruin the movie for me, but I would have done it just better. I overall thought The Burbs was a very fun experience. It's a fun movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. All right. So with all that being said, I'm gonna give The Burbs a solid 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.